In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where civilizations rise and fall like cosmic tides, there exists a universal truth that even the most advanced species have learned to respect: never underestimate humanity's capacity to turn trash into treasure. What the Galactic Council dismissed as worthless scrap would soon become the key to rewriting the very laws of interstellar warfare and exploration. When the derelict human vessel Perseverance was discovered drifting in the Kepler Nebula, alien salvage crews couldn't have imagined they were looking at the most dangerous ship in the galaxy. Its hull was scarred, its systems appeared primitive, and its fuel readings showed what every spacefaring civilization knew to be impossible. But humans have always had a talent for making the impossible seem routine. This is the story of how one useless spaceship changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics, fuel, and the terrifying ingenuity of the species from Sol 3. The salvage ship Zephyr's Edge drifted through the Kepler Nebula like a mechanical scavenger, its sensors sweeping through the colorful gas clouds for anything of value. Captain Vexstar, a seasoned Corlean with metallic blue skin and, for arms that moved with practiced efficiency, had been running salvage operations for 3 decades. His crew had seen everything the galaxy had to offer in terms of space junk, from ancient Altarian pleasure craft to military destroyers that had seen better centuries. "Captain, we're picking up a signature," called out Zin, the ship's young Hectoran navigator. Her insect-like compound eyes reflected the scanner's glow as she manipulated the controls with her delicate, multi-jointed fingers. "It's unusual." Vexstar's secondary arms continued to work on his daily reports while his primary hands reached for the scanner display. "Define unusual, Zin." In this business, unusual usually means either very profitable or very dangerous. "The energy signature doesn't match any known propulsion system in the galactic database," Zin replied, her antennae twitching with excitement. "And, Captain, the mass readings are strange. It's showing as a medium-class vessel, but the density is all wrong." Through the viewports, the nebula swirled in magnificent purples and blues, hiding whatever lay within its gaseous embrace. Vexstar had learned long ago that the nebula was like an old treasure chest, occasionally revealing something worth the risk of navigating its sensor-dampening effects. "Bring us closer," he ordered, his experienced eyes already calculating potential profit margins. "But keep the shields up and weapons ready. You know the rule." "Never trust anything that doesn't make sense," the crew chorused, reciting the salvager's first law that had kept them alive through countless encounters with everything from automated defense systems to territorial pirates. As the Zephyr's Edge pushed deeper into the nebula, the mysterious vessel began to take shape on their screens. What they saw made the entire bridge fall silent. Floating in the cosmic mist was a ship unlike anything in their databases, yet somehow familiar in its basic configuration. It was roughly cylindrical, about 200 meters in length, with what appeared to be massive engine assemblies at the rear that seemed almost comically oversized for the vessel's mass. "By the cosmic winds," whispered Drac, the ship's Thurlian engineer. His rocky, crystalline features reflected his confusion as his geological mind tried to process what he was seeing. "Those engine configurations, they're primitive. Pre-stellar civilization primitive. But those readings. What about the readings, Drac?" Vexstar asked, though part of him already suspected he wouldn't like the answer. "The fuel signature is showing levels that shouldn't be possible with that engine design. According to these readings, that ship has enough fuel to travel for thousands of years at maximum burn. But look at the engine efficiency ratings." Drac's voice carried the confusion of someone whose understanding of physics was being challenged. Zin's antennae were practically vibrating now. "Captain, I'm reading life support systems that are still partially functional, but they're designed for a species I can't identify. The atmosphere mixture is strange. High nitrogen, decent oxygen levels, but with trace elements I've never seen in a life support system." "Scan for life signs," Vexstar ordered, though his gut told him they'd find none. Ships didn't just drift in nebulae with their crews intact. "Negative on life signs, Captain." But the ship's computer systems appear to be in some kind of standby mode. "And there's something else." Zin paused, her compound eyes reflecting uncertainty. "There are markings on the hull. They're not in any galactic language database, but they're clearly intentional. It says something like Perseverance." The name meant nothing to any of them, but there was something about the ship that demanded respect. Despite its seemingly primitive technology, it had survived drifting in one of the galaxy's most dangerous regions. The Kepler Nebula was known for its gravitational anomalies and radiation bursts that could tear apart ships with modern shielding. "Bring us alongside," Vextar decided. "Prep the boarding shuttle. Drac, I want you to focus on those engines and fuel systems. If those readings are accurate, we might be looking at a completely unknown technology. Could be worth a fortune to the right buyer," added Kess, the ship's Valdorian security chief. Her reptilian features showed the calculating expression of someone mentally counting credits. The science skills would pay handsomely for something like this. As the boarding party prepared their equipment, Vextar couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change their understanding of space travel. In 30 years of salvage work, he'd learned to trust his instincts, and right now they were telling him that this primitive vessel was anything but. The airlock systems proved to be surprisingly compatible with galactic standards, though the design was crude by modern standards. As the boarding party made their way through the ship's corridors, their suit lights revealed a vessel that was clearly built for function over form. Every surface showed signs of use, but also of careful maintenance. This wasn't an abandoned ship, this was a ship whose crew had cared for it until the very end. "The atmosphere is safe for most galactic species," reported Dr. Sina, the ship's Andrillian medical officer and xenobiologist. Her tall, graceful form moved through the corridors with scientific curiosity. "But, I'm reading some unusual elements in the air mixture. Whatever species built this ship, they required a very specific atmospheric composition." The bridge was a marvel of straightforward engineering. Control panels were clearly labeled, though in the unknown script they'd seen on the hull. The design philosophy seemed to be built around redundancy and reliability rather than efficiency or elegance. Everything had a backup, and most backups had backups of their own. "Drac, get down to the engine room," Vextar ordered through the comm system. "I want to know how this ship is showing fuel readings that our computers say are impossible." "Already on my way, Captain," came Drac's excited reply. For an engineer, discovering new technology was like finding a perfectly formed crystal in a random rock formation. Meanwhile, Dr. Sina was examining what appeared to be personal quarters. "Captain, I'm finding some interesting items in what looks like crew quarters. There are pictures or displays showing a blue world with green landmasses and white cloud formations. And the beings in the images." She paused, clearly struggling with what she was seeing. "They look almost identical to Corleans, but with only 2 arms and different skin pigmentation." "Are you saying this ship was crewed by a species similar to mine?" Vextar asked, though the implications were troubling. There were no known Corlean-like species in this region of the galaxy. "Not similar, Captain. If I didn't know better, I'd say they were an evolutionary cousin. But that's impossible unless..." Dr. Sina's voice trailed off as the implications hit her. "Unless what, Doctor?" "Unless this species evolved independently on a completely different world and achieved spaceflight without any contact with the galactic community. The statistical probability of such similar evolution is astronomical." From the engine room, Drac's voice crackled through the calm with barely contained excitement. "Captain, you need to see this. I've never seen fuel storage like this in my life. The energy density readings are off our instrument's scales, but the containment system looks like something a first-year engineering student might build." Vextar made his way to the engine room, leaving the bridge analysis to his specialists. What he found there defied everything he thought he knew about space travel. The fuel tanks were massive, taking up nearly a third of the ship's internal volume, but they were built with what appeared to be primitive materials and basic engineering principles. "How is this possible?" he asked Drac, who was running every scan his equipment could manage. "I have no idea, Captain. The fuel itself is showing energy signatures I've never seen. It's not antimatter, it's not fusion fuel, it's not any known energy source in our databases. But, according to these readings, a single drop of this fuel contains more energy than our entire ship's fuel supply. Could our instruments be malfunctioning? I've run diagnostics 3 times. Everything checks out. Captain, if this fuel technology is real, it would revolutionize space travel for every species in the galaxy. Ships could travel for centuries without refueling. Exploration missions could reach the galactic edge and beyond." Vexstar stared at the primitive-looking fuel tanks and tried to process what he was hearing. This discovery could make them wealthy beyond imagination, but it also raised disturbing questions. If this unknown species had such advanced fuel technology, where were they? Why was their ship drifting alone in a nebula? "Sir, I'm finding something in what appears to be the ship's record room," Dr. Cena's voice interrupted his thoughts. "There are physical storage devices with information, but also something that might be a ship's log. If I can figure out their data storage system, we might learn who built this ship and where they came from." "Do it," Vexstar ordered. "But be careful. We don't know what kind of security systems they might have had." As the boarding party continued their investigation, each discovery raised new questions. The ship's design suggested a species that built things to last, but also a species that expected to be alone in space for long periods. Every system was designed for self-repair and redundancy. The life support systems were built to recycle everything with remarkable efficiency. Even the lighting systems were designed to last for decades without maintenance. Captain Zin's voice came through the comms from the bridge. "I've been analyzing the navigation systems, and I think I figured out where this ship came from. The star charts are primitive but detailed, and they show a journey from a system that's not in our galactic databases. But, based on the stellar positions and the journey timeline I'm reading, this ship traveled for over 200 years to reach this region." 200 years? What species travels in space for 200 years? One that builds ships like this one, apparently. "Captain, I think this vessel was on some kind of long-range exploration or colony mission. The supplies I'm finding suggest they were planning to be in space for centuries." Vexstar felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. A species that planned missions lasting centuries was a species that thought very differently from most galactic civilizations. Most space travel was measured in days or weeks, not years, and certainly not centuries. "Drac, how much fuel would this ship have started with?" "Based on the tank capacity and the current levels. Captain, this ship could have traveled for over 1,000 years at full power. Even after a 200-year journey, it still has enough fuel to cross the galaxy several times over." The implications were staggering. Somewhere in the galaxy was a species that had developed fuel technology that made them effectively unlimited in their range of travel. The question was whether that species was peaceful or if this ship represented the advance scout of something much larger and potentially threatening. "Doctor, any progress on those records?" "I'm making some headway, Captain. Their data storage is actually quite sophisticated despite the primitive appearance. I'm finding references to something called Project Exodus and mentions of a world they call Earth. But, Captain, some of these records are disturbing." "Define disturbing." "They mention a dying world. Environmental collapse, resource depletion, wars over the remaining habitable areas. This ship appears to be part of a desperate evacuation effort." Vexstar processed this information with growing concern. A species fleeing a dying world with unlimited range fuel technology could be either refugees seeking help or conquerors seeking new territory. Either way, the galaxy needed to know about them. "Package everything we've found," he ordered. "We're taking this ship back to the nearest council station. The authorities need to know about this technology and this species." "Captain," Drac called out, his voice showing unusual concern for a typically calm engineer. "I'm finding something else in the engine room. Hidden compartments with what appears to be manufacturing equipment. I think they weren't just carrying this fuel, I think they knew how to make it." As the Zephyr's Edge prepared to tow the mysterious vessel back to civilization, none of the crew could have imagined that they had just discovered the first sign of humanity's arrival in their galaxy. The ship they thought was merely unusual would soon prove to be the harbinger of the most significant change the galactic community had ever experienced. The Galactic Council Research Station Omega-7 orbited the purple gas giant Theshan Prime like a mechanical moon, its multiple rings rotating slowly to provide artificial gravity for the dozens of species that called it home. Dr. Kellen Vorthak, the station's chief xenotechnology analyst, had seen his share of unusual discoveries over his 40-year career, but nothing had prepared him for what the salvaged ship Zephyr's Edge had brought him. Standing in the main analysis bay, Vorthak's 6 eyes studied the human vessel Perseverance through the massive transparent aluminum windows. His Nexarian physiology allowed him to see across multiple spectrums simultaneously, and what he was seeing defied conventional understanding of spacecraft design. The ship looked primitive, almost crude by galactic standards, yet something about it commanded respect. Dr. Vorthak, the preliminary analysis reports are ready, announced his assistant, Dr. Mira Chenvalis, a brilliant young scientist whose mixed Turellian-Altarian heritage gave her unique insights into both technical analysis and intuitive problem-solving. Her silver-scaled skin shimmered as she moved between workstations, her forearms managing multiple data streams simultaneously. "What have we learned about our mysterious visitors?" Vorthak asked, though he suspected the answers would only lead to more questions. "It's extraordinary, Doctor. The fuel analysis alone is rewriting our understanding of energy storage and conversion. The substance appears to be a hydrogen-based compound, but the molecular structure is unlike anything in our databases. The energy density is approximately 4,000 times greater than our most advanced antimatter fuel systems." Vorthak's main eyes widened while his peripheral visual organs continued monitoring the ship. 4,000 times? That's impossible. The energy required to create such a compound would exceed the output of most stellar systems. That's what I thought initially, but Dr. Yen Nix in the chemistry lab has been working around the clock on this. According to his analysis, the compound isn't artificially created in the traditional sense. It appears to be naturally occurring, but processed and refined through techniques we don't understand. Dr. Yen Nix, a gaseous Etherian who existed in a specialized containment suit, had joined them in the observation deck. His form shifted and swirled as he communicated through his suit's translation matrix. "Colleagues, this fuel represents a paradigm shift in our understanding of chemistry. The compound shows signs of quantum-level manipulation that should require technology far beyond what we see in this vessel." "You're saying the builders of this ship had quantum manipulation technology but built their ship with what appears to be primitive materials?" Vorthak asked. "Precisely. It's as if they discovered one incredibly advanced technology but chose to implement it using basic engineering principles. Every other system on the ship could have been built by a pre-galactic civilization." Dr. Chenvalis brought up a holographic display showing the ship's internal structure. "We've completed our detailed scans, and the engineering philosophy is unlike anything in the galactic databases. Instead of efficiency and miniaturization, they prioritized redundancy and durability. Every critical system has multiple backups, and most of those backups have backups." "Show me the life support analysis," Vorthak requested. The hologram shifted to display the ship's environmental systems. The life support is designed for a species that requires a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere with trace amounts of argon and carbon dioxide. The biological requirements are surprisingly similar to several galactic species, particularly the Corleans, but with some key differences." "What kind of differences?" "The builders appear to have been carbon-based, bipedal, approximately 1.7 meters in height on average. They had forward-facing eyes suggesting a predator evolution, opposable thumbs indicating tool use, and, based on the ship's design, they were highly social and cooperative." Dr. Yenix's form swirled with what might have been excitement. "The interesting aspect is their approach to long-term space travel. Most species develop faster propulsion to reduce travel time. These beings appear to have solved the problem by developing better fuel and building ships designed to function for centuries." "Centuries?" Vorthak's voice carried disbelief. "The ship's logs, which our linguistics team is still deciphering, indicate a planned journey duration of over 200 years. The crew quarters are designed for multi-generational habitation. This wasn't a quick exploration mission, this was a permanent departure." Dr. Chenvalis manipulated the display to show the ship's data storage areas. "We've recovered thousands of data storage devices, and our linguistics team, led by Dr. Thexani, is making remarkable progress with their language." Dr. Thexani, a crystalline silicarbon whose body resonated with harmonic frequencies to communicate, joined the discussion. The translation devices converted her mineral song into standard galactic. The language structure is complex but logical. They call themselves humans and their world Earth. The records indicate a planet-wide ecological collapse that forced them to seek new worlds. "Environmental refugees," Vorthak mused. "That explains the long-term planning. They weren't exploring, they were fleeing." "There's more," Dr. Thexani continued. The records mention other ships. This vessel, which they designated Perseverance, was one of many sent in different directions. They called it the Exodus Fleet. The implications hit the assembled scientists like a physical blow. If this was one ship of many, then an unknown number of vessels with this incredible fuel technology were somewhere in the galaxy. How many ships? Vorthak asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. The records are incomplete, but we found references to at least 50 vessels, possibly more. Each was sent toward different regions of the galaxy with instructions to find suitable worlds and establish colonies. Dr. Yenix's form darkened, indicating deep thought. 50 ships with this fuel technology, each capable of centuries of travel at high speeds. If they've been traveling for 200 years, they could have reached any system in this galactic arm. We need to contact the Galactic Council immediately, Vorthak decided. This information changes everything we know about potential contact scenarios. Dr. Chenvalis highlighted another section of the ship's analysis. Doctor, there's something else you should see. We found what appears to be a manufacturing facility in the ship's lower levels. It's primitive by our standards, but it appears designed to produce their quantum fuel. They can manufacture the fuel during their journey? More than that. Based on the equipment analysis, they can convert basic hydrogen into their advanced fuel using a process that appears to be largely automated. As long as they can find hydrogen, which exists throughout the galaxy, they can essentially refuel anywhere. Vorthak felt a chill run through his crystalline structure. A species with unlimited range, the ability to manufacture fuel anywhere they traveled, and unknown intentions spreading across the galaxy was potentially the most significant event in galactic history. What about defensive capabilities? He asked. Dr. Chenvalis shifted the display to show the ship's weapons systems. That's where things get interesting. The ship has minimal defensive weapons by galactic standards, but the designs we've found suggest they're capable of much more sophisticated military technology. Explain. The weapons they have installed are primarily for asteroid clearing and basic defense against space debris. But, hidden in their data storage are designs for weapons systems that would be considered advanced by current galactic military standards. Particle beam weapons, kinetic bombardment systems, and something they call relativistic kill vehicles. Dr. Yenix's form pulsed with alarm. Relativistic kill vehicles? That implies they understand how to accelerate mass to near light speed for weapons purposes. They have the fuel technology to make such weapons practical, Dr. Thexani added ominously. Most species can't build relativistic weapons because the energy requirements are too great. These humans appear to have solved the energy problem. Vorthak moved closer to the window, studying the seemingly innocent vessel that had just revealed itself to be potentially the most dangerous ship in the galaxy. So we have a species of environmental refugees with virtually unlimited fuel, the ability to manufacture that fuel anywhere they travel, and weapons technology that could threaten any world in the galaxy. And there are at least 50 ships like this one somewhere in our space. That appears to be an accurate assessment, Dr. Chenvalis confirmed. There's one more thing, Dr. Thexani added. The ship's logs contain detailed star charts and planetary analysis criteria. They're looking for specific types of worlds, Earth-like planets with suitable atmospheres and existing ecosystems. But they're also evaluating worlds based on their strategic value and defensive capabilities. Strategic value? For refugees? The records indicate they learned from their world's destruction. They're not just looking for new homes, they're looking for worlds they can defend. Their planet died because they couldn't protect their environment from exploitation. They appear determined not to let that happen again. Dr. Yenix's form brightened slightly. That could indicate peaceful intentions. A species focused on defense rather than conquest. Or it could indicate a species that's learned the value of striking first, Dr. Chenvalis countered. A species that's lost one world might be very aggressive about protecting the next one. Vorthak turned away from the window and faced his team. We need comprehensive analysis of everything we've found. I want detailed reports on their technology, their culture, their apparent intentions, and, most importantly, their capabilities. The Galactic Council will need complete information to decide how to respond to this discovery. Dr. Thexani interrupted, there's something else in the records that you should know. The ship's logs contain references to contact protocols. They were expecting to encounter other species. What kind of contact protocols? They appear to have detailed plans for both peaceful contact and hostile encounters. They've clearly thought extensively about how to approach alien species. But, Doctor, their peaceful contact protocols are very sophisticated. They understood concepts like cultural contamination, technological disparity, and gradual integration. That sounds promising, Vorthak noted. Yes, but their hostile encounter protocols are equally sophisticated. They've planned for everything from single-ship conflicts to full-scale wars. And, given their fuel technology and apparent weapons capabilities, they could sustain conflicts across vast distances for extended periods. Dr. Chanvalis brought up another display. We've also found evidence that they're not just refugees. The ship contains detailed scientific equipment and research protocols. They appear to be conducting ongoing research during their journey, continuously improving their technology. Improving how? The manufacturing equipment we found isn't just for fuel production. It's a complete fabrication facility capable of producing advanced technologies. If they've been traveling for 200 years while continuously improving their capabilities, the implications hung in the air like a threatening storm. A species that had been traveling for 2 centuries while continuously advancing their technology could have developed capabilities far beyond what their initial departure suggested. Dr. Vorthak, came a voice from the station's communications center. We're receiving a priority transmission from Galactic Council headquarters. Fleet Admiral Zirian wants to speak with you immediately. As Vorthak made his way to the communication center, he couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. The discovery of the Perseverance had revealed the existence of humanity, but it had also raised questions that would challenge everything the galactic community thought it knew about contact with unknown species. Behind him, his team continued their analysis of the human vessel, each new discovery adding another piece to a puzzle that seemed to grow more complex and more concerning with every answer they found. The ship that had seemed like an interesting salvage find was proving to be the harbinger of the most significant challenge the galaxy had ever faced. The Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime was a marvel of architectural cooperation, designed to accommodate the vast diversity of species that made up the galactic community. Floating platforms, atmospheric containment fields, and gravity adjusters allowed beings as different as gas-based Etherians and crystalline silicarbons to meet in the same space. Today, that space buzzed with tension as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for an emergency session. Fleet Admiral Zirian, a towering Drachmary whose reptilian features had been hardened by decades of military service, stood at the central podium. His scaled hide bore the scars of conflicts that had shaped the current peaceful era, and his voice carried the authority of someone who had personally paid the price for galactic stability. Esteemed representatives, Admiral Zirian began, his voice echoing through the chamber's translation systems, we are here to discuss what may be the most significant discovery in our collective history. 3 days ago, salvage operators discovered a vessel of unknown origin drifting in the Kepler Nebula. What we have learned from this vessel challenges our understanding of technology, space travel, and, potentially, our place in the galaxy. The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of life support systems and translation matrices. Representatives from hundreds of worlds focused their attention on the Admiral's presentation. Dr. Kellen Vorthak from Research Station Omega-7 will present his analysis, Admiral Zirian announced. Dr. Vorthak's 6 eyes scanned the assembled delegates as he activated the chamber's holographic display system. The image of the Perseverance appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly to show its utilitarian design. This vessel represents our first contact with a previously unknown species that calls itself human, Dr. Vorthak began. The ship, designated Perseverance by its builders, has been traveling through space for approximately 200 years. It is one of at least 50 similar vessels sent from their homeworld when that planet suffered ecological collapse. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. Environmental refugees were not unknown to the galaxy, but the scale being described was unprecedented. The critical factor that makes this discovery significant is their fuel technology, Dr. Vorthak continued, highlighting the ship's massive engine assemblies. Their fuel system stores energy at a density 4,000 times greater than our most advanced antimatter systems. A single drop of their fuel contains more energy than most starships carry in their entire fuel complement. Council Representative THYSSERA, a graceful Altarian whose crystalline form reflected the chamber's lights and prismatic patterns, spoke first. Dr. Vorthak, you're describing energy storage levels that approach theoretical maximums. Are you certain of these measurements? We have verified the readings using 17 different analysis methods across 6 research stations. The measurements are accurate. More concerning is that their ship contains manufacturing equipment capable of producing this fuel from basic hydrogen using a process we do not understand. The chamber erupted in discussions as representatives processed the implications. Admiral Zirian's commanding voice restored order. Dr. Vorthak, please continue with your cultural and technological assessment. The humans appear to be a young species by galactic standards. Their departure from their homeworld occurred only approximately 250 of our standard years ago. However, they demonstrate remarkable technological innovation and long-term strategic thinking. The holographic display shifted to show translated excerpts from the ship's logs and database. Their records indicate they approach contact with unknown species with both scientific curiosity and military preparedness. They have detailed protocols for peaceful contact, but equally detailed preparations for hostile encounters. Most significantly, they appear to be continuously improving their technology during their centuries-long journey. Representative Gorthmek, a massive Thurlian whose rocky exterior had been shaped by millennia of geological evolution, rumbled his concern. A species that has been improving military technology for 2 centuries while traveling through space represents a potential threat level we have never encountered. That assessment may be premature, interjected Counselor Zephania, the ethereal Valdorian whose telepathic abilities made her one of the galaxy's most skilled diplomats. Their environmental refugee status suggests they may be more interested in finding new homes than in conquest. Dr. Vorthak nodded acknowledgement. Counselor Zephania raises a valid point. Their ship shows clear signs of being designed for long-term survival and planetary colonization rather than military conquest. However, their weapons technology designs suggest they are capable of defending themselves against significant threats. What kind of weapons are we discussing? Asked Admiral Zirian. Their current ship carries only basic defensive systems, but their database contains designs for particle beam weapons, kinetic bombardment systems, and what they term relativistic kill vehicles. Given their fuel technology, all of these weapons would be practical for them to build and deploy. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed this information. Relativistic weapons were theoretical for most species due to energy requirements, but humanity apparently had the fuel technology to make them practical. Counselor Vexai, an ancient Nexarian whose vast experience had shaped galactic policy for centuries, posed the critical question. Dr. Vorthak, in your assessment, do these humans represent a threat to galactic stability? That depends entirely on their intentions, which remain unknown. They have the technological capability to be either valuable allies or dangerous enemies. Their fuel technology alone could revolutionize galactic transportation and exploration. However, the same technology that makes them valuable partners also makes them potentially dangerous adversaries. Representative Krilthok of the Hegemony Worlds, whose insectoid species had a long military tradition, clicked his mandibles aggressively. We should assume hostile intentions. A species with unlimited fuel and advanced weapons technology cannot be allowed to establish itself in our space without proper security measures. With respect, Representative Krilthok, Counselor Zephania replied, her mental voice carrying calm reason, that approach risks creating the very hostility we seek to avoid. If we treat them as threats, they may become threats in response. Admiral Zirian stepped forward. We have prepared 3 potential response scenarios. First, immediate military response to locate and contain all human vessels. Second, attempted diplomatic contact through established first contact protocols. Third, enhanced monitoring while attempting covert contact to assess intentions before formal diplomacy. What is the military assessment of our capabilities against these humans? Asked Representative Gorthmek. Admiral Zirian's expression grew grave. Based on the analysis of their technology, a single human vessel with full fuel capacity could potentially outrun, outmaneuver, and outfight most ships in our fleet. Their fuel technology gives them operational range and endurance that we cannot match. In a defensive position around a suitable planet, they could potentially hold off a significant military force. And, if there are truly 50 such vessels, added Fleet Commander SAX Terra, they represent a distributed threat that could not be eliminated simultaneously. Any hostile action against discovered human vessels might provoke retaliation from unknown numbers of ships we haven't located. Counselor Zephania floated higher in her atmospheric field. I propose we focus on the diplomatic opportunity. Their records indicate sophisticated understanding of interspecies contact. This suggests they may be willing to engage in peaceful dialogue. But, what do they want? Representative THYSSERA asked. Refugees seeking homes is one thing, but refugees with advanced military technology and strategic thinking is quite another. Dr. Vorthak brought up another display. Their ship's database contains detailed analysis criteria for planetary selection. They're looking for worlds with Earth-like conditions, existing ecosystems, and strategic defensive value. They're also analyzing resource availability and technological development of local systems. Technological development? Admiral Zirian asked sharply. Yes, Admiral. They appear to be evaluating the technological level of any species they might encounter. The criteria suggest they're interested in technological exchange but also in avoiding technological dependence. Representative Krillfox's mandibles clicked rapidly. They're scouting us. Evaluating our capabilities while hiding their own. That's a reasonable interpretation, Dr. Vorthak acknowledged. However, it could equally be interpreted as prudent preparation for contact with unknown species. Consul Prime Fisimar, whose ancient Nexarian wisdom had guided the galaxy through previous crises, finally spoke. Her voice carried the weight of millennia of experience. We face a decision that will determine the future of galactic civilization. We can choose to approach these humans with fear and hostility, potentially creating a conflict with beings whose technological capabilities we cannot match. Or we can choose to approach them with cautious diplomacy, potentially gaining allies whose technology could benefit all galactic species. Prime Fisimar, Admiral Zirian said respectfully, what if we choose diplomacy and discover their intentions are hostile? Then, we will face the same military challenge we would face if we chose hostility from the beginning, but we will do so with the knowledge that we attempted peaceful resolution. However, if we choose hostility and discover their intentions were peaceful, we will have created an unnecessary enemy whose capabilities could devastate our civilization. The chamber buzzed with discussion as representatives debated among themselves. The weight of the decision was clear to everyone present. Counselor Zephania's voice cut through the discussions. I have a proposal. We should attempt to establish contact with the ship we've discovered. If the crew is dead, as the salvage report indicates, we should prepare a comprehensive message for them to find when they return to check on their vessel. If we can establish communication with this single ship, we can assess their intentions before making broader policy decisions. And, if their response is hostile? Representative Krillfox demanded. Then, we evacuate our research station and prepare for the defensive scenario Admiral Zirian outlined, Counselor Zephania replied calmly. Prime Fisimar's ancient wisdom shaped her next words. The history of our galaxy has been shaped by how we respond to the unknown. We have built our civilization on the principle that diversity of species and perspectives makes us stronger. These humans may represent the greatest test of that principle we have ever faced. Admiral Zirian nodded slowly. If the Council approves the diplomatic approach, I recommend we prepare defensive measures while attempting contact. We should disperse our fleet to protect critical worlds while offering a peaceful hand to these humans. What if they have already made contact with other species? Asked Representative Gorthmek. 50 ships traveling for 200 years could have encountered dozens of worlds. Dr. Vorthak had been dreading this question. That's the most concerning unknown in this entire situation. We have no way of knowing where the other human ships are, what they've encountered, or what they've done. For all we know, there could be human colonies already established in remote systems. The implications hung heavy in the chamber. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans with advanced technology and unknown intentions might already be establishing themselves on suitable worlds. The Galactic Council was potentially dealing with a fait accompli rather than a first contact scenario. Prime Thisomar called for order. We will vote on our response. All in favor of the diplomatic approach with defensive preparations? The voting proceeded with the gravity appropriate to a decision that could reshape galactic civilization. As the results were tallied, everyone in the chamber understood that they were setting a course that would determine whether humanity would become humanity's greatest ally or its most dangerous enemy. The choice was made, but the consequences would unfold over months and years as the galaxy prepared to meet the species that had turned a useless ship into a harbinger of change. Captain Sarah Chen had been dreaming of Earth's blue skies again when the proximity alarms pulled her from cryogenic sleep. The hibernation cycle was only supposed to last 18 months this time, but the gentle hum of the Perseverance's systems told her something had changed. As the revival process flushed the cryochemicals from her system, she tried to process what could have triggered an early wake-up call. Status report, Aria, she called out to the ship's artificial intelligence system once her throat cleared enough to speak. Captain Chen, we have arrived at the Kepler Nebula checkpoint 17 days ahead of schedule due to favorable stellar currents, the AI responded in its familiar synthetic voice that had become like a trusted friend over the decades of their journey. However, I have detected something unusual at the checkpoint location. Sarah pulled herself from the cryo bay, her muscles still shaky from the extended sleep. At 43, she had already spent more time in space than most humans had ever imagined possible, but the journey was far from over. The Perseverance was only one of 50 ships in humanity's desperate exodus from a dying Earth, each seeking a new home among the stars. Define unusual, Aria. Are we talking about stellar phenomena or something else? Something else, Captain. I am detecting the presence of our sister ship at the checkpoint. The Perseverance is still there. Sarah's blood ran cold. The checkpoint was where they had left the Perseverance 30 years ago when the ship had suffered critical system failures that left it unable to continue the journey. They had transferred the surviving crew to other vessels, but the ship itself had been left behind as a supply cache and potential backup if other ships needed emergency resources. That's impossible, Aria. The Perseverance was running on backup power only. The crew was evacuated to the New Horizons and the Frontier Spirit. I am aware of the evacuation, Captain. However, I am detecting power signatures from the Perseverance that suggest it is currently occupied. Additionally, I am reading energy signatures that do not match our ship configurations. Sarah made her way to the bridge, her mind racing through possibilities. The Perseverance had been their sister ship, nearly identical to the New Dawn that Sarah now commanded. If someone had managed to repair it and bring it back online, it could only be other humans. But the additional energy signatures suggested something else entirely. The bridge of the New Dawn was designed for efficiency rather than comfort, every surface serving multiple functions during the long journey between stars. As Sarah took her position in the command chair, the main display showed their approach to the Kepler Nebula checkpoint. Wake the senior staff, Sarah ordered. And, Aria, run full spectrum analysis on those energy signatures. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we get any closer. As her officers emerged from their own cryogenic recovery, Sarah studied the readings from the checkpoint. The Perseverance was indeed there, but it was surrounded by structures and energy fields that hadn't been there 30 years ago. Commander David Park, her first officer and oldest friend from the evacuation fleet, joined her at the command station. His weathered face showed the strain of decades spent managing one of humanity's most desperate missions. Sarah, those readings don't look like anything we built, he said quietly. I know. Aria, are you detecting any human life signs on the Perseverance? Negative, Captain. However, I am detecting multiple life signs of unknown origin both on the ship and in the surrounding structures. The biological signatures do not match any Earth-based life forms in my database. The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. After 2 centuries of travel, they had finally encountered alien life, and those aliens had found their abandoned ship. Could they be hostile? Asked Lieutenant Commander Maria Santos, the ship's security chief. Unknown, Aria replied. However, the aliens have made extensive modifications to the Perseverance without damaging its essential structure. This suggests either careful study or an attempt at preservation. Dr. James Wright, the ship's chief science officer, was already analyzing the sensor data. Captain, I'm reading energy patterns that suggest advanced technology. These aliens appear to have significantly more sophisticated power systems than we do.
More sophisticated than our quantum fuel systems? Sarah asked. Much more sophisticated.
Their energy efficiency ratings are off our measurement scales.
Whatever they're using for power makes our quantum fuel look primitive.
Sarah felt a mix of hope and fear. Meeting aliens had always been a possibility they had planned for, but discovering them already studying human technology changed the equation entirely. Aria, begin broadcasting our standard first contact message on all frequencies. Include our identity, peaceful intentions, and request for communication.
Broadcasting now, Captain.
The message went out in multiple mathematical languages that human scientists had developed for potential alien contact. It identified the New Dawn as a human vessel, explained their status as refugees seeking new homes, and requested peaceful dialogue. For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then, the communication array lit up with an incoming transmission.
Captain, reported Communications Officer Lisa Park, we're receiving a response. The signal is incredibly complex, but it appears to be some kind of translation matrix. They're attempting to communicate in our language.
The main screen flickered and, then, displayed what appeared to be a communication interface. After a few moments, words appeared in English. Human vessel New Dawn, this is Dr. Kellen Vordak of the Galactic Council Research Station. We have been studying your ship Perseverance and hope for peaceful contact with your species.
Sarah exchanged glances with Commander Park.
The fact that aliens not only existed but had an organized government was both encouraging and terrifying. Dr. Vordak, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel New Dawn. We are grateful for your peaceful approach to our ship.
May we discuss the current situation?
The response came quickly, Captain Chen, we are honored to make contact with your species. We have learned much from studying your ship, but we have many questions.
Are you able to meet for direct communication? That depends on the safety parameters. We know nothing about your biology or technology. How do you propose we meet?
We have prepared a communication chamber that can accommodate your atmospheric requirements.
We invite you to board our station for face-to-face dialogue.
Sarah turned to her officers.
This was the moment that could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. Dr. Wright, what's your assessment of the risk?
Captain, if they wanted to harm us, they probably could have done so already. Their technology is clearly more advanced than ours. The fact that they're attempting communication suggests peaceful intentions. Commander Park leaned closer.
Sarah, this could be the break humanity needs.
If these aliens are part of a larger galactic community, they might be able to help us find suitable worlds for colonization. Or they might see us as invaders with dangerous technology, Lieutenant Commander Santos countered.
We know nothing about their politics or territorial claims.
Sarah made her decision.
Aria, prepare a diplomatic party.
Commander Park, Dr. Wright, and I will transport to their station. Lieutenant Commander Santos, if something goes wrong, you are to retreat and warn the other ships in our fleet.
As the shuttle bay prepared for launch, Sarah couldn't help but think about the irony. The Perseverance, abandoned and thought useless, had become humanity's first ambassador to an alien civilization. The ship they had left behind had somehow accomplished what 2 centuries of travel had not: first contact with galactic civilization. The shuttle Aurora detached from the New Dawn and headed toward the alien research station. As they approached, Sarah could see that the structure was enormous, clearly designed to accommodate multiple species. Docking ports of various sizes and configurations suggested that this galactic community included beings very different from humans. Captain, Dr. Wright observed, look at the design philosophy. Every aspect of that station is built to accommodate diversity. These aliens have experience working with multiple species. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth, suggesting that galactic engineering standards were more universal than human scientists had imagined. As they prepared to leave the shuttle, Sarah realized that the next few hours could determine whether humanity would find a home in the galaxy or become fugitives fleeing an even greater threat.
The airlock opened to reveal a chamber that was clearly designed for first contact scenarios. Multiple atmospheric environments were maintained simultaneously, and the beings that greeted them were unlike anything in human imagination. Dr. Vorthak was tall and elegant, with 6 eyes and crystalline features that reflected the chamber's lights in complex patterns. Beside him stood other beings that represented the diversity of galactic life, insectoid, gaseous, crystalline, and others that defied easy description. Captain Chen, Dr. Vorthak said through a translation device, "Welcome to Research Station Omega 7.
We are honored to meet the builders of the remarkable vessel we have been studying."
Dr. Vorthak, "The honor is ours. We never expected to find intelligent life so soon, or to discover that you had found our abandoned ship."
"Captain, your ship is far from abandoned in our estimation. It represents technology that could revolutionize galactic civilization. We are eager to learn about your people and your remarkable fuel systems."
As the formal introductions continued, Sarah realized that humanity's quantum fuel technology, which they had considered merely sufficient for their desperate journey, was apparently revolutionary by galactic standards. The useless ship they had abandoned had revealed humanity's potential value to an entire galactic community. "Dr. Vorthak, we are refugees seeking new homes for our people. Our world died, and we have been traveling for over 2 centuries looking for suitable planets for colonization. Captain Chen, you have traveled farther and longer than most species ever attempt.
Your people's determination and technology are remarkable. The Galactic Council is very interested in establishing formal relations with humanity."
The mention of a Galactic Council sent a thrill through the human delegation. An organized galactic government suggested possibilities that humanity had barely dared to hope for.
"What kind of relations?" Sarah asked carefully. "That remains to be determined through formal diplomatic channels."
"But, Captain, I believe your people may have much to offer the galaxy, and the galaxy may have much to offer your people in return." As the initial meeting continued, Sarah began to understand that the Perseverance's discovery had set in motion events that could reshape humanity's future. The ship they had thought was useless had become the key to joining a galactic civilization beyond their wildest dreams.
6 months after first contact, the Nexus Prime orbital platform had been transformed into a hub of unprecedented activity.
The arrival of humanity had created ripples throughout the galaxy that continued to reshape political, economic, and technological relationships among the hundreds of species that comprised galactic civilization. Ambassador Sarah Chen, formerly captain of the New Dawn, stood in her new office looking out at a sight that still amazed her: human ships working alongside alien vessels in the construction of humanity's first permanent galactic presence. The Perseverance, once abandoned and deemed useless, now served as the centerpiece of the Human Integration Facility, its quantum fuel systems providing power for research and development projects that were revolutionizing galactic technology. "Ambassador Chen," came the harmonic voice of Dr. Thexani through the translation matrix, "the Council is ready for your presentation on the Colonial Integration Protocol." Sarah turned from the viewport to face her crystalline assistant. Over the past months, she had learned to read the subtle frequency shifts that indicated Dr. Thexani's emotional states. Today, the harmonics suggested both excitement and concern.
"How are the council members responding to our proposals?" Sarah asked as they walked toward the council chambers. "Mixed reactions, as expected.
The trade guilds are enthusiastic about quantum fuel technology and the commercial possibilities.
The military representatives remain cautious about human strategic capabilities.
The scientific community is fascinated by human research methodologies and innovation approaches." As they entered the council chambers, Sarah marveled again at the diversity of beings that comprised galactic civilization. Today's session included representatives from 47 species, each bringing unique perspectives to the question of human integration. Admiral Zirian, who had become Sarah's primary military liaison, approached with his characteristic directness.
"Ambassador Chen, before we begin, I should inform you that we've located 3 more human ships in the past week." "3 more?
Where?" "The New Horizons has established a research outpost in the Andromeda Spiral Arm, the Frontier Spirit is conducting geological surveys in the Centaurus region, and the Pioneer's Dream has made contact with the hegemony worlds near the galactic edge."
Sarah felt a mix of relief and concern.
Finding more human ships was wonderful, but each discovery created new diplomatic complexities.
How are the local species responding to contact?
Cautiously positive in most cases.
Your people seem to have developed excellent first contact protocols. However, the hegemony worlds are requesting immediate council mediation.
Apparently, the pioneers' dream demonstrated quantum fuel technology to help with an emergency evacuation, and now the hegemony military wants to understand the strategic implications. Dr. Vorthak joined their conversation, his 6 eyes showing the strain of months spent analyzing human technology.
Ambassador Chen, we need to discuss the fuel manufacturing protocols.
Our engineering teams have been studying the quantum fuel production systems from the Perseverance, and we've discovered something extraordinary.
More extraordinary than fuel with 4,000 times the energy density of antimatter? Sarah asked.
Much more extraordinary. The quantum fuel isn't just efficient, it's scalable in ways that could solve the galaxy's energy crisis. A single human fuel production facility could provide clean, unlimited energy for entire star systems.
The implications hit Sarah immediately. Humanity's refugee status was rapidly transforming into a position of incredible strategic importance. Dr.
Vorthak, are you saying human fuel technology could replace the galaxy's current energy infrastructure?
Not could, Ambassador. It must.
Our current energy systems are reaching critical sustainability limits. Several major civilizations are facing energy shortages that could lead to resource wars within the next century.
Human quantum fuel technology represents the difference between galactic prosperity and civilizational collapse.
As they took their positions for the council session, Sarah realized that humanity was no longer just seeking a home in the galaxy. They were being positioned as potential saviors of galactic civilization itself.
Prime Thisomar called the session to order. We are gathered to discuss the colonial integration protocol proposed by the human delegation. Ambassador Chen, please present your proposal.
Sarah stepped to the central podium, acutely aware that her words could determine humanity's future for generations. Honored representatives, 6 months ago, humanity was a collection of refugee ships seeking new homes. Today, we find ourselves in a position to offer the galaxy something we never expected, a solution to the energy challenges that threaten long-term galactic stability.
The Chamber's translation systems carried her words to hundreds of species as she outlined humanity's proposal. We propose a 3-phase integration protocol.
Phase 1, establishment of human colonies on suitable uninhabited worlds, with full sovereignty and council protection. Phase 2, technology sharing agreements that provide quantum fuel systems to council member species in exchange for raw materials, infrastructure support, and technological knowledge. Phase 3, full membership in the Galactic Council with voting rights and treaty obligations.
Representative Krilthok of the hegemony worlds immediately responded.
Ambassador Chen, your proposal essentially offers to solve our energy problems in exchange for sovereign worlds and council membership.
This seems remarkably generous for a refugee species.
Sarah had expected this challenge.
Representative Krilthok, our generosity comes from necessity. We've learned that isolated civilizations are vulnerable civilizations. Earth died because humanity tried to solve its problems alone. We don't want to repeat that mistake.
Counselor Zephania's telepathic presence added weight to her words.
The human proposal addresses practical needs for all parties.
They gain security and permanent homes, we gain access to technology that could prevent resource-based conflicts for millennia.
But, what guarantees do we have that humans will honor these agreements once they're established? Asked Representative Gorthmek.
A species with unlimited fuel and advanced weapons technology could easily abandon cooperative agreements if it served their interests. Dr. Wright, who had been appointed as humanity's chief technology liaison, stepped forward.
Representative Gorthmek, I'd like to address that concern directly.
Human quantum fuel technology is not a weapon, it's a tool that becomes more valuable when shared.
The manufacturing process requires rare elements that are distributed throughout the galaxy. No single species, including humanity, could monopolize fuel production.
Elaborate, Admiral Zirian requested. The quantum fuel manufacturing process requires a specific isotope of helium-3 that occurs naturally in gas giant atmospheres, but only in certain stellar configurations. Additionally, the catalyst materials include rare minerals that are found in different regions of the galaxy.
A complete fuel production system requires cooperation among multiple star systems.
Sarah smiled as she realized Dr. Wright was revealing humanity's masterstroke.
What Dr. Wright is explaining is that quantum fuel technology inherently requires galactic cooperation. We couldn't dominate the galaxy with this technology even if we wanted to.
It only works through partnership. The chamber buzzed with discussion as representatives absorbed this information.
The human proposal wasn't just offering technology, it was offering a form of technology that would bind galactic civilization together through mutual dependence and shared prosperity. Prime Thisamar's ancient wisdom guided her next question. Ambassador Chen, how many human ships remain unaccounted for in your Exodus fleet?
37 ships, Prime Thisamar. Based on our projections, they are distributed throughout the galaxy, probably conducting the same kind of exploration and research missions that brought us into contact with your civilization. 37 ships with quantum fuel technology, advanced manufacturing capabilities, and unknown current locations, Representative THYSSERA observed.
This raises interesting questions about galactic security and territorial sovereignty. Sarah had been preparing for this moment for months. The Galactic Council has a choice, representatives.
You can treat humanity as a threat to be contained, in which case you'll face potential conflicts with 37 ships that you can't locate, can't catch, and can't defeat. Or you can treat humanity as partners to be integrated, in which case you'll gain allies whose technology can solve problems that threaten every civilization in the galaxy.
Admiral Zirian's military assessment was characteristically direct.
Ambassador Chen, you're essentially offering us a choice between war and partnership, with the understanding that war would be both costly and unlikely to succeed.
No, Admiral.
I'm offering you a choice between fear and hope. Fear of what humanity might do if treated as enemies, or hope for what humanity can contribute if treated as partners.
Counselor Zephania's telepathic insight added depth to the discussion. The human proposal offers something unprecedented in galactic history, a refugee species that brings solutions rather than problems.
Their fuel technology could eliminate the resource scarcities that drive most interspecies conflicts. Dr. Yennix, whose gaseous form had been studying human technology for months, offered his perspective.
From a purely scientific standpoint, human integration would accelerate galactic technological development by centuries. Their innovation methodologies are unlike anything we've seen. Explain, requested Dr. Vorthak. Human scientists approach problems through rapid prototyping and iterative improvement rather than theoretical perfection.
They build working solutions quickly, then improve them continuously. This approach has allowed them to develop practical quantum fuel technology while we're still debating the theoretical implications. Sarah realized this was the moment to make her final appeal. Honored representatives, the Perseverance was deemed useless when we abandoned it 30 years ago. It seemed like a failure, a ship that couldn't complete its mission. But that useless ship became the bridge between humanity and galactic civilization. It proved that sometimes what appears to be a failure can become the foundation for unprecedented success.
You're asking us to take an enormous risk, Representative Krillfox stated. No, Representative. I'm asking you to take an enormous opportunity.
The risk is in rejecting partnership with a species that could help solve the galaxy's greatest challenges.
Prime Thisamar called for the preliminary vote on opening formal integration negotiations. As the representatives voted, Sarah watched the display showing the results across hundreds of species and thousands of worlds.
The vote was overwhelmingly in favor of integration negotiations.
As the session concluded and representatives began discussing implementation details, Sarah returned to her office viewport.
The Perseverance continued its work as the center of the Human Integration Facility, its quantum fuel systems powering research that was already transforming galactic technology.
Dr. Thexun joined her at the window. Ambassador Chen, how does it feel to know that humanity has gone from refugees to essential partners in just 6 months?
Sarah watched human and alien engineers working together on projects that would have been unimaginable a year ago.
It feels like the beginning of something extraordinary.
The Perseverance taught us that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones others consider useless. Outside the viewport, the galaxy continued its ancient dance, but now it danced to a rhythm that included humanity.
The species that had fled a dying world had found not just new homes, but a new purpose, helping to build a galactic civilization that could last for millennia. The ship that was deemed useless had proven to hold far more than anyone predicted. It held the future itself.